there. There we go. 3, 2, and 1. Well, Mary Katie, welcome back. Mayor's Monday here at WSAU, WSAU.com. I believe the technical word that you just used was it's a hot mess today. Is that correct?
I mean, as far as scheduling goes, I don't know who did this, but I guess I'm looking at her in this. It's a lot. There's a lot going on this week, and I have just not had any breaks, which is fine. I'd
Yeah,
rather
indeed,
have
which is why we're on Zoom today. But
yes, yes,
it's one of those things that we've kind of learned to live with and learned how to make use of in times like this
yeah.
because of the pandemic.
Oh yeah.
But nonetheless, obviously last week there was a lot of discussion regarding the new drinking water treatment plant. I wanted to talk about that a little bit because I know if anybody that watched the meeting or maybe watched a replay of it available on YouTube, as all city meetings are, and of course these meetings as well. Uh, Somebody who is looking at some of that information for the first time is probably going to have a little bit of a shock because right now the city's financial consultants are saying we could be looking at another significant hike in water rates in the next few years. I guess tell us where we're at with that right now.
Yeah, so we continue to look at the ways to find that permanent PFAS solution. And, the system costs between 16 and $17 million. And, we do need to figure out how to pay for that. So, there's opportunity still. We have an unallocated amount of 9 million in our ARPA funding, so the council could still consider that. We have talked to Senator Baldwin's office, who got us a federally congressionally directed funding source. I think we used to call them earmarks. So that's basically what that is. But those are all. And we also have access to the safe drinking water and clean drinking water loans, forgivable grants, things like that. But all of that is just not coming together fast enough for us to be making decisions. So we're looking at how we'll fund that with what we see on the horizon, but also how we fund it right away to get working on it. So that's kind of what you're seeing right now. We didn't make decisions yet on what that looks like. I've had some feedback from folks. So, obviously if there are things people want to talk about, I would love to hear from them. Shout out to the people who've reached out already. But yeah, it's going to be a hard one. And, this is one of those things for when we're planning these big infrastructure upgrades, things like that. If we could have baked PFAS remediation in from the very beginning, I think we'd be talking about a different kind of a project. But that's how this happens. The regulatory framework doesn't match up with some of the health statistics, and we're kind of building as we go, which isn't ideal.
Yeah, exactly. And, as you mentioned, waiting for these funding sources to come in. I know it was brought up a couple of times during that meeting. We're looking at, gap funding
Yep.
because we may have to wait a couple, 3 years or so. I mean, is there any, I guess, conversation in the city right now about maybe putting this project off for, 3 to 5 years or so, so you have more time to come up with some of this funding?
Yeah, so that's not really the way the conversation has unfolded around here. But I will say that, we're talking about the anion exchange mixed with that resin to remove the PFAS. That will get us between 0 and 20 parts per parts per trillion when we turn it on. So that will help us. But, when we need to refresh that resin, that's a couple $100,000, I mean, $800,000 to refresh it out. And, that's why we had the pilot study, was to figure out how long can we use this before there's breakthrough. So, I mean, it's not necessarily sustainable in a way that we would like that in order to address the PFAS. And I suppose if people come to me saying, hey, we don't care about PFAS anymore, I suppose that's a discussion we could have. That's not the discussion that I'm having with people, though. They're excited for when our plant will turn on, that they can feel safe again, with the drinking water. So, it's complicated, as we were talking about before this even.
Yeah, that's right. I know that there's obviously some people that, say they've wanted this done yesterday. Some people who have said,
I
okay,
might
well,
have been some people saying that even.
right. There might be some people who say, hey, we're okay with just having a zero water pitcher in our refrigerator and being able to replenish that 3 or 4 times a week, however quickly they happen to go through that. For somebody like me, I'm only filling it maybe once or twice a week,
Yeah.
because it's just myself and my cat. But everybody's got a different appetite level for
Right.
this, and I'm guessing your end game probably hasn't changed, which is uh equitable for everybody. Anybody
Yes.
who turns on a tap in Wausau gets water that's ready to go and ready to drink
Yeah,
right out of
we
the
need to be
glass.
able to feel comfortable about what's coming out of our faucets, right? So that's the solution here. And it's just gonna take us figuring out how to finance that. Again, I've been having conversations with the chair of finance. I've been having council president conversations. We're all trying to tackle this because recognizing this is a heavy lift for the community. And even things like I've had people asking, why aren't we billing monthly? Because it's easier for me if I were to pay monthly instead of, quarterly. So, these are all kinds of things. And, that doesn't change the cost, but it
Mhm.
does change how people feel about writing those checks out, right? So, again, all of these things under consideration. It's a lot. And I wish the solutions were easier, cheaper, faster. This has probably been one of the hardest years of my life because of the water issues.
Mhm. Yeah, and we will certainly continue to watch when these decisions do get made. I know you didn't make a decision this month. You're putting that off at least until next month. Do you have, I guess, an end line in mind right now as to when you would like to have something in
Yeah,
place?
I think ultimately, what I'd like to do is have some weigh in from the finance committee. And, they're considering the budget right now. They're considering, ARPA applications on a rolling basis. And, there has been some desire from that chair to talk about what financing with ARPA would look like for the utility, especially when it comes to this permanent solution. So those are conversations that will need to be had in the coming month or two. But, we'll
Mhm.
continue having those conversations as a utility as well. And if there's feedback, again, would love to hear from people. I know I don't always hear from everyone, but I am definitely open to hearing from everyone. Email,
Mhm.
call, all the things.
Absolutely. Well, we will see where that ends up going over the next couple of months or so, because also staring you in the face right now, actually early in November, is election day. What do you want residents in Wausau to know about what is undoubtedly one of your favorite days out of the year?
I do love an election day. Tell you what, it fires me up. I get excited seeing all the people wearing the I voted stickers, all of that. So I guess the things that people should consider, you will still 2 weeks before the election, you'll be able to vote in person, early absentee at City Hall. That's still happening. We'll make sure you get your witness and all of that. Your ballot will be counted. I know the clerk's office told me they sent out about 2,800 vote by mail ballots. So those are out. People have them. There's still time to sign up for that if that's what you're interested in. Just contact the clerk's office. They'll get you hooked up. Always, you need your ID to vote, no matter where or when you vote. You need that ID. I'm ready. I think we should shatter some voting records. I'd like to see as many people as are eligible to vote. They should. I think they should show up and have their voices heard. We have a lot of important races on the ballot. We've got governor, we've got attorney general, we've got secretary of state, we got treasurer, and all the way on down. So important stuff.
I've always said, look, I've been doing this long enough. I've seen too many local elections that get decided by a roll of the dice, drawing of the high card out of the deck of 52, or, even I guess you would call it the good old fashioned coin flip. Every
Right.
election, every time, make a plan,
Yeah.
execute it. Doesn't matter what's on the ballot, just do it.
Well, yeah, and I have zero empathy for people who say they didn't know there was an election. I think you and I both know it's impossible to avoid all of the advertisements, the mailings, the everything. I mean, it's everywhere, and I like specifically try to block some of that stuff out because it's too much.
Mhm.
So yeah, there's a lot. Obviously, Assembly and Senate still important too. So again, lots of stuff. Next year we don't have as many elections, so make sure you have your voice heard this year.
Yes. Yes, indeed. And again, that is coming up on November 8th.
Yep.
We will certainly be reminding people on this medium. And by that, I mean my newscasts more than once between now and then. I'm,
You'll have
I'm
a couple, I'm
sure.
sure.
Yeah, absolutely. getting into the winter season, one last thing we wanted to talk about, the city has approved spending some ARPA money to help with the Catholic Charities Warming Center. I know this is something that means a lot to a lot of people in the city. There's been a lot of people giving public input, public comments on the issue of homelessness in the city, and it's something that you're starting to take up as well in more ways than one. And this is, I guess, one of the big ones.
Right. So we've had a lot of conversations at city council, at community meetings, everywhere about homelessness, and it's changed in our city even over the last 3 years. We're seeing more of it. We're seeing people in places that we haven't seen before. And we're also seeing a need for more resources. So the city council, I'm so pleased to say they approved funding for 365 warming center services. So that's really great. But we also hired our outreach specialist, who will be right now working directly with the unhoused folks. And we took her from Catholic Charities. So
Hmm.
we also recognize that they're in a hiring, they have a need to hire good people who know how to run these things. So if you're interested, I'm sure Roberto would be able to hook you up with a job description, especially since we have more need. And I know that we're not the only community having these conversations. I've talked to folks in Eau Claire, La Crosse, especially, and what they're doing to address their concerns. And there's no right answer at this point. I will say, one of the things I have been kind of lightly broaching with the county right now is the fact that in these other communities, the county is participating in
Hmm.
helping facilitate some of the housing needs and resource needs. And obviously, they're our mental health resource for our entire county. So we need their support and help. So those conversations will be ongoing as well.
Yeah, and I understand too in hiring the new resource officer through the police department, which is something that it's been talked about for a while, and they've just now kind of brought it into the fold. You're going to be getting some monthly updates from her on the
Yep.
situation, but I understand as well in the early days that she's already got some success stories to tell
Yeah.
from
I
her
mean,
interactions out there.
day one, she came into my office. It was in the afternoon with Officer Lemarand, and they had already helped two people connect to resources. So, again, like two people might not seem like a lot, but for the kind of labor-intensive work that this is, it's a big deal. There are people that need help, getting those appointments and sticking with it, and having those connections and transportation and all of those things. So it's rightly positioned right now for us to make a big impact. And while also understanding there's a lot more we need to do.
Mhm. Yeah, indeed, and we'll look forward to seeing how that conversation plays
Yep.
out. And I know I'm, for one, looking forward to hearing some more success stories from this as well, especially given the state that everything is in these days with
Yep.
so many jobs, so many good paying jobs out there that some of these people could be connected with. And then ultimately, housing. But of course, that's a whole nother conversation because, again, if for those of you who paid attention to city meetings last week, we found out that there's about 70,000 jobs in Marathon County and only 60,000 homes. Uh, and that's something that you're working on as well. So, just in the last couple of minutes that we have here, give us a quick overview of
Sure.
where we're at on Grand Avenue because you fielded 4 proposals
Yeah.
on Tuesday for about 50 low income housing units, and all 4 of them look really
Oh
good.
yeah. Yeah, we're so lucky. Developers responded. And I just want to give a shout out to our development director, Liz Brodek. She helped organize a few months ago a tour of central Wisconsin where we brought in a bunch of developers and showed them some of the spots we're thinking about. And 4 of the developers kind of came up and said, "Yep, we're interested." And they specialize in this in other parts of the city, so or community, I guess the state. So really good. It was good to see them. I'm really excited. the Economic Development Committee wants to have a little bit more time with being able to compare some of the X's and O's of those proposals. You know, some are asking for more money, some are relying on certain kinds of grants. They want to see if it's reasonable. And also, like, what do they look like? What does the parking situation look like? You know, I think we spend a lot of time worrying about parking in the city, and this is another one of those things, especially on that lot where it's pretty tight. And so you want to make sure that people have access to park, but also to get through. So I expect a special meeting coming up here. I think it's on the 17th. So stay tuned. We'll get to hear more about those proposals.
Absolutely. Last but not least,
Ooh.
we got World Cup coming up in
Oh, oh,
mid-November. What are our plans? Are we going to put up a big screen in the 400 block? All the US games are going to start at 10 a.m.
yeah.
local time. Are we going to put up a big screen in the 400 block and have
Okay,
a
I
watch
want to
party?
know, are you in November? Are you going to be out on the 400 block, like, you know, waving your scarf and your shirt off? Because it feels a little cold. I do know we have a couple of places around here that are
Mhm.
very interested in World Cup watch parties. So,
Okay.
you know, the last time the women won, I was at Whitewater Music Hall and
Mhm.
very much enjoyed myself with that community there. It was very exciting. So,
Mhm.
I expect a couple of places to be showing this.
Look, all I'm saying is it's right there,
Okay,
400 block,
you know,
giant
we can
projector.
talk to
We can
Wausau
do it.
events maybe. You know, maybe that's a thing that we could, you know, turn into a whole,
Absolutely. Absolutely.
ordeal.
I've got enough scarves. I mean, it's to the point now where I'm putting them up in my cubicle. So that's
You
all
know,
I'm
you
saying.
gotta do
I've
what you
got it.
gotta do. It's, you
Indeed.
know, and soccer is the real football. There, I said it.
All right. That mic drop. We are going to leave before we get too deep into that conversation. So we always appreciate the time, Mary Katie. We look forward to chatting again next
Thanks
month.
a lot.